All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. No one's here yet, but you'll be there shortly. And welcome to the latest installment of Geek Speaks Greek. My name is George O'Connor. I am the author and illustrator of the graphic novel series Olympians. And if you're joining me for the first time, this is it's a lecture sort of thing that's been going on. Basically, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I get in here and I talk a lot about Greek mythology. This particular week, we're doing heroes, but sometimes we do goddesses, sometimes we do gods, sometimes we do monsters. But I talk a lot about a specific character or aspect of myth, and then I draw some pictures of them. I talk about how I've used them in my series, or in some instances, how I haven't used them in my series, and we draw the pictures of them. So I'm going to jump into it pretty quickly today, because normally, I kind of ramble on, let people join in, and that's great. I notice a lot of people have been catching up after the fact on my YouTube, where I put all the episodes at youtube.com/user/George Olympians. All the episodes go up there. But I want to jump into it pretty quickly today because we got a lot of fan art. Now, as you know, if you've seen this before, I tend to start off the episode showing like some of the pictures that people sent. And on Monday, I covered the Greek hero Theseus. If you watch that episode, you know I'm not the biggest Theseus fan. So, and I think I kind of came through in my presentation. I was maybe a little hard on Theseus, but you know what? He kidnaps children and puts them in cages, waiting for them to grow up so they'll be pretty and he can marry them. He's a monster. Seems like a lot of you agreed, and we got a lot of pretty cool drawings to share. Actually, though, I'll say this first one. This is by Elia. That's just a great drawing. And it's Theseus, just pretty close to the way I draw him. He's got the color, got the hair with a little bit of the mullet. Has the cruel smile, though. So you really nailed it. That's great. Kind of looks like, I don't expect you would know this, but if there's any adults watching this, kind of looks like Bruce Campbell from the Evil Dead movies. Like, even his sword looks almost like he's got a chainsaw. That's a great drawing, Elia. Thank you so much. Let's see what else we have here. This is actually not a Theseus piece, but it's so good I had to share it. This is from Rana, is her name. Beautiful name. This is a drawing she did of Persephone. Look at that expression. It's so complicated and so complex. Like, I like that. I'm also a big fan of freckles. I don't have freckles. I'm kind of, a little bit darker skinned, so I'll never have freckles. But that's beautiful. That's like a great... Like, there's so much subtlety going in that drawing. Rana, way to go. That's great. Oh, no. I lost the page. Okay. I like to say this is the lowest tech, high-tech show on the internet, and you'll see why. Yeah, you see why. This is from... Oh, no, what happened? Okay. This is from Eleanor. Eleanor has been one of our most devoted artists. She has this amazing energy. Her figures always pop right off the page. This is Theseus and the Minotaur, Asterion, who we covered like last week? I forget when. Oh, time's a blur. She wanted to point out, if you notice very closely, Theseus has blue eyes, just like his father, Poseidon, the god of the sea. So Eleanor, that's amazing. You are the best. Let's see... Oh, here's one. This is from, you've seen her work before. This is from Mashaya, very talented artist. She drew, she actually improved on the version I drew, and she wrote, now I always wondered why you gave Theseus a mullet. She thought it was just to make him look like more of a creep. Turns out it was because it's actually a reference to an Athenian hairstyle at the time, and she wrote in great flourish, super creep. But I mean, look at that guy. Just no good comes from that look. That guy, his hair is always greasy and I'm not like my hair's not greasy, but people who live in glass houses, I guess. I shouldn't really be attacking someone for their looks. Okay. So you remember we started getting fan mail from somebody who at first was only identified as fan from Korea. Now I've learned their name is Yihe. Yihe? Darn it. Yihe. Yahi. Gosh, you know what? I'm really sorry. I'm feeling like adult. But this is one of the coolest drawings, ever. he wrote that they were listening to flamenco while they drew this. So they drew Zeus and Hera doing a tango. Look at this drawing. Look at these colors. Look at the partner who just passed off Hera. It's Argus, the Panoptus, the 100-eyed giant. Because, my whole theory that they were an item once upon a time that survived to us. Also, he wanted to pass along, inspired in Hera's dress by Shiloh, superfan Shiloh, who often writes in, sometimes, that doesn't make sense. Sometimes even does like little dancing songs about the characters. This is based on one of Shiloh's drawings. Like this, I love everything about this. This is like the coolest drawing. I love like the colors. I love the movement in it. I like the fact that they're dancing together. I've talked about it before, the musical Hades Town, which is like on Broadway right now. I saw it a few months before everything shut down. I was supposed to see it last week again. It's beautiful, and my favorite part of the entire amazing musical is this little scene where just Hades and Persephone dance together. It brings I just got like literally a wave of goosebumps coming up there, and that kind of gives me the same feeling. So that's amazing. Couldn't believe, I love it. And here's another one from Yehi. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sure you'll correct me though if I'm wrong, right? All right, I'm going to hold this up for a second, let everyone soak in the details. I feel like, I don't know if you guys get it. I have to say what it is, though. Like, I love this so much. So, that sign back there, because it's reversed, says, not a caveman. Because this figure in the foreground is Ariadne. Left on Naxos by Theseus the creep. This dude in her word bubble giving the thumbs up, looking like a super creep. And she's thinking after him is Theseus, who just left her there. But there's a happy ending to Ariadne's story, because the not a cave person that's coming through the back there is Dionysus. He's about to come rescue her, make her his queen, and in some instances, a literal goddess. So yeah, big step up. You know what? If you ever have the chance and you're stuck between dating Dionysus and Theseus, go Dionysus. Theseus is the worst. Let's see. Here we have, these are two more from Joseph, who we've seen before. Joseph has, he already started as a really good artist. He's gotten, noticeably better as this goes on. Look at how awesome this Theseus is. And he's put all these details, and there's a lot of stuff that's backwards. I really have to figure out how to show this right. He goes, since I don't get a trident, and, his dad, Poseidon's like, kid, that thing's for me. And he's like, oh, Dad, I'm only a mortal. That's so Theseus. He's whining. I think there was one other drawing from Joseph. Oh, Amphitrite from the other day. That's actually not Theseus's mom, but Theseus's dad's wife. Awkward. And there's one more thing I want to close out with. The other day, I shared with you all a bunch of drawings, not sketches, from my fan, from Megan. And they were, Megan ships together Hermes and Athena. Really thinks they'd make a great couple. And I have to kind of agree, especially after seeing her drawings. And there was a series, she had drawn 3 offspring for them. And I remember just kind of hypothesizing who they might be. So she's written back and she's actually given me all their names. So now we know. So the one that looks kind of like if Ares and Athena had a child together, that is Bellona. And Bellona is the bloodthirsty. She is the goddess of war, the beneficial, destructive, but frenzied side of it. So, okay. She's one of the kids of them. Then the one who looks like a gender-swapped Hermes is Hermia. She is the goddess of shepherds. And I also, did you notice that the animals with them too? First was a black panther, now we have a sheep. Makes sense. I love this Hermia. This one's really speaking to me. And then there's Almathea, the graceful and talented. She quite resembles Aphrodite, so I wonder, there's a little bit of she also has the swan, which is another Aphrodite thing. She is a goddess of music, choral song, and poetry. So she's probably hanging out with the muses a lot. And this is just so cute. That's a picture of the expectant parents. I gotta say, when Athena doesn't have her helmet on, she really does kind of resemble Aphrodite. And then here they are, the happy family right after the birth. And I love it, Hermes still doesn't even take off his helmet. It's like, come on, guy. Let your guard down just once. I think that's it. I think that's it for today. Oh, wait. Oh, this one I have to share because this is really funny. To go off on Theseus, I've been going off on Theseus. To finish off on Theseus, here is a picture of an alternate universe where Theseus and Asterion were buddies. Where instead of Theseus going in there and killing the man-cow, they're like, oh, or actually, why would I say man-cow when it's so obvious to say cowboy? Instead of killing the cowboy, they're like friends. So, and that drawing comes from... Oh, I forgot. It's in another... I think that's Nora and Drake. I'm sorry. I forgot. Okay. Had to get that out of the way. It's so much art. There's even stuff I didn't get the chance to show you. You guys are really nailing it today. If you're someone who feels inspired to send him some of the pictures, send it to me, please, on my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. And sometimes, unfortunately, there's going to be weeks where I don't have enough to show it. So I think I'm going to start posting a lot of the stuff on my actual Instagram. Yihi especially has sent me some things that are, like, they're full-on comics. And you need to be able to read them to really appreciate them rather than me holding them up for a second on a video. So I think I'm going to start posting these things on my Instagram. So if you want to send something and you don't see it here, keep hope. I'll probably post it, like, just as an actual post. Whew. So it's a lot of talking, but I've only just begun. Because today, on Hero Week, we're going to be visiting with the great Greek hero, Jason. First off, dude's pretty lucky, right? A lot of these names don't exactly translate well to modern days, but Jason, that's just a straight-up normal name now. My brother is named Jason. It's also the name of people who wear hockey masks and, hang around abandoned summer camps, but we won't go into that. I was pretty excited to cover Jason because unlike most of the most Greek heroes, we were talking about this the other day, they're almost all invariably demigods. You can change, like Theseus, his dad is Poseidon. Heracles, his dad is Zeus. And I was like, Jason was like really one of the only ones I could think of who had just a pretty much straight human parentage, and that was interesting. But I did a little bit of a deeper dive, and I saw, oh my gosh, his grandpa on his mom's side. His mom was a woman named Palamede. Oh, there's different names. That's the only one I can remember. And her dad was Autolycus, which means the self-wolf. But Autolycus, he was this thief, the best mortal thief in the world. He could change shape. He could change the shape of what he stole, so he could steal your wallet and turn it into like a flower, so you would never be able to prove it was him. His dad was Hermes. So I didn't realize this until just doing a little read-up. Jason is the, I guess that's great-grandson, right? Or maybe grandson, wait. No, he is the great-grandson of Hermes, which means his great-great-great-grandfather is Zeus. So he does have a little bit of Olympian blood in him. But compared to everybody else, it's a lot less. So let's just say he's mostly a person. He just ends up being, better in, almost every way. So to talk about Jason, there's a lot of backstory to get out of the way. His dad was a dude named Aeson, very similar to Jason, but and Aeson had a half brother named Peleus. Peleus, his dad, they had the same mom. Mom was just immortal. Peleus's dad was Poseidon, and we know about Poseidon's kids. They tend to be monstrous, and Peleus was no exception. So there was some question as to who would be the ruler of the kingdom they were in. Oh, Iolcus, I should mention that, because there's going to be so many names, guys. I'm going to try to get through this without it being super confusing. Peleus, the son of Poseidon, half-brother of Aeson, wants to be the king. And so he speaks to the oracle at Delphi. And the oracle tells him, well, you got to kill your whole family. He's like, got it. So he does. He kills virtually every single person. The only one who escapes is Aeson himself. In some versions. Sometimes it's his wife. Someone escapes to give birth to Jason. Here's the real problem with Peleus' plan, right? He killed them all. He assumes he gets to be the king. He takes over the throne. They did the deed. They did the killing of the family in one of Hera's temples. So Hera's like, oh really? You're going to do that? You're going to desecrate my temple? You're going to murder your family in my temple? Buddy, do you know which goddess you're messing with here? So, Peleus has an enemy in a very important place. Now, Jason, who is the son of Aeson, let's just say for this ends, let's assume Aeson died, because I think that's what I actually wrote in my book. It's his mom. Jason is raised in complete ignorance of his importance, that he doesn't realize that he is a potential heir to a throne. He just raised as a normal guy, having a normal life. He's maybe a little bit stronger and stuff because he's got a great-great-grandpa. He doesn't, or, yeah. And so he's, doing okay. Very athletic, very smart, very strong. And one day in the kingdom of Iolcus, Peleus holds this ceremony. It's not a ceremony, it's games. Kind of sort of like the Olympic Games, but instead of being in honor of Zeus, it's in honor of his dad, Poseidon. Because believe you me, Peleus brags about his dad. Like, you don't get 3 minutes into a conversation. It's like, did I mention my dad's Poseidon? Like, yes, you did. We all get it. So Jason's like, well, I'm pretty strong. I'm pretty smart. I'm tired of hanging around this no-end town, like doing nothing. I'm going to go compete in this game. Remember, he has no idea he's related to Peleus. He has no idea he's in line for this throne. He doesn't know any of this stuff. So he shows up. And he's almost to the city, and he comes to this river, Inoros? I don't know. Let's see. I think it's the river Inoros. And there's this old lady, and she's like, oh, little man. Not little man, that'd be very condescending. Young man, could you help carry me across? Now, Jason, unlike almost every other hero we can mention, is not a jerk. So Jason's like, of course, you're an old lady. Picks her up, she's surprisingly heavy. And he's carrying her across the river, and it's this real kind of arduous trek. He's like, ugh. And the river is deceptively deep at parts. He's trying to keep her dry. It's really muddy, so his feet are slinking in. And it's a harder thing than he can do. And as he's doing this, the old lady's kind of like rambling to him, right? And it's kind of like he's listening, and like his mind is being blown on so many levels. And she's like, hey, you are actually the heir to the throne. And you're going to go there, and I'm the goddess Hera in disguise, and I'm going to help you, and you're going to take the throne. And he's telling him all this stuff, and it's like to hear that, your mind is so blown that by the time he gets to the other side of the river and he lets the old woman down, he's forgotten it. It's not that it was so traumatic, really. She's using like Olympian telepathy. She kind of gives him the understanding, but also makes it so he only realizes it by drips and drabs, so he's not like, like crazy. And he's like, hey, where'd the old lady go? She's gone. He looks down. He's lost one of his sandals. He's like, man, oh well, what can he do? Got sucked off the mud. So he continues to walk on. He shows up to the games, one-sandaled, does spectacularly well because I guess he's got, I thought he was just like an exceptional dude. Turns out he does have some Olympian blood in him. So, he wins all the things. And he's brought up to speak to Peleus. And Peleus is immediately kind of looking at him funny. And Jason's like, why is this guy looking at me funny? It's probably because I got one shoe on. And he's right. Because remember how Peleus had spoken to the Oracle of Delphi? The Oracle of Delphi had told him, beware of a man with one sandal. Because that man is going to overthrow you. So this super tall, handsome, athletic guy comes out of the out of the games, just beat everybody. He's got one shoe on. Peleus is like, I see what's going on here. And he kind of studies Jason's face, and he can see Jason doesn't seem to have any sort of malice, doesn't seem to be concealing any sort of trickery. So he asks him, and this is pretty good of Peleus, I gotta say. He's like, if you were me, and a man was standing in front of you who wanted to take your job, who wanted to overthrow you as king, what would you do? And Jason stops for a second, and he thinks, and there was a subliminal suggestion made by Hera earlier, which he only kind of ghost remembers, so it's on the tip of his brain. He's like, why, I would send that man to go fetch the legendary Golden Fleece. So Peleus does that. Now, the Golden Fleece was kept in a place called Colchis. Colchis was considered to be part of the, it was beyond the end of the world. We talk about the end of the world a lot in these, right? There's always these parts. A Golden Fleece, by the way, it's just it's a lambskin that's made of gold. But it's this amazing artifact, and it's incredibly famously hard to find. People have looked at this for years, and no one ever has, because how do you go beyond the ends of the earth? You just can't even do it. Jason's like, how am I going to do this? And this is where Hera, as his sponsor, starts speaking to him. And she commands him to get a boat made. And she wants this boat to be called the Argo. Now, I've talked before in at least 2 other episodes, my personal pet theory that, and we saw it just a little bit before ago in Yihi's picture, Argus, the Panoptus, the 100-eyed giant, I feel like there's a missing body of stories where he and Hera are lovers. But she has him name this boat the Argo, Argus. And so he creates this boat. And then he assembles the greatest collection of heroes that Greece has ever seen to man this boat. They were called the Argonauts. So a lot of times I talk about the design of the characters. I spend a lot of time drawing them. There's really not that much into my design of Jason. So I want him to be a kind of good-looking guy. I want him to be pretty decent too, right? Like, just like a normal person. Because at the time I drew this, I didn't know he had any immortal blood at all. And I thought he seemed like he was probably a pretty relaxed dude. So I gave him this kind of like California surfer vibe. And because he is a mariner, because he's a sailor, I dressed him as a sailor. I had the idea that maybe he would always have like a shin guard in one foot as an homage to the sandal, but that looked just kind of weird. And then if him walking around all the time with one sandal, let's give him like lower back problems. So the only thing that was really a nod to it is he's just kind of dressed like a simple Greek sailor. And he wears like a tunic the color of the sea. So there we have Jason. Not super built here. I don't know why I give him like these peg legs. But he's a kind of lithe, like more thin hero. And part of the reason I drew him this is honestly because his biggest appearance to date was, and his first appearance was in Hera, the goddess in her glory. And he's contrasting that to Heracles. And Heracles is so big and hulking that I wanted him to have a different appearance. So Heracles has dark hair. I gave him lighter hair. I gave him like the much more like thin, like acrobatic frame because Heracles is more huge. So the Argonauts. I don't like this drawing. I'm gonna start it again. I'm gonna draw. There's just a pencil here. Who cares? So we're gonna draw like a smaller version of Jason. Because I want to draw the assembled Argonauts. The Argonauts, I mean, you can see it's the Argo, so it's like astronauts, Argonauts. Let's give him, this time we'll give him a little bit beefier arms, because I don't know, he was like on a diet there or something. Give him a sword. So there's Jason, right? Almost human Jason. I was talking with a friend of mine before this, and he kind of mentioned, and he's so right, the Argonauts are the Avengers of Greek mythology. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. It's like every single one of these guys has their own franchise, their own set of movies, right? And they come together and they join into this super team. So if I'm to use this idea that they are the Avengers, I would say Jason's like, I guess he's like Captain America. He's like a guy, a normal guy. He's pretty decent, although we'll get into that later. Captain America stays decent forever, of course. But he's like amped up. He's got like normal human abilities, but at a greater degree. And he's the leader. He's the charismatic one. It's all centered on him. Makes sense. He's Captain America, right? So then there are the Dioscuri, Castor and Polydeuces. They are the sons of Zeus. Remember how when I talked about, well, they're twins. I should mention that. Remember how when I talked about Theseus, like my biggest thing, the reason he's the biggest creep of all, is because he stole Helen when she was a little girl, Helen of Troy, and locked her away waiting for her to get older so he could marry her because he knew she was going to be beautiful. Yeah, biggest creep ever. Well, guess what? Castor and Polydeuces are Helen's older twin brothers. Helen herself is a twin too. And there's a kind of like, so their dad is Zeus. Their mom is a normal woman named Leda, not Leto. It's very confusing because there's the two. But you know, when you're Zeus and you have 8 million lovers, they're going to happen that sometimes. Here's the sad thing about Castor and Polydeuces. I mean, they're demigods, full on, super powerful, right? Great strength. One of them is mortal. One is not. So one will live forever and one will die. I'm not going to talk too much about them because I want to save them for another episode. I guess they're twins, so in the Avengers analogy, maybe they're like Wanda and Pietro. I don't know, because that's the only twins. Power level, though, they're like just really strong. Like maybe it's like having like if Thor and Loki were on the team together. Like they're two demigods. They're really strong. They're well known for boxing, especially. So I draw them with like their forearms wrapped, because that's the way boxers would box back then. Then there were these guys called the Boreads. They're the sons of Boreas, the god of the wind, and their names were Zetes and Calais. They had wings. I'm going to draw them in the back because, you know, they have to be far away. So the Avengers don't have any winged members, do they? Oh, Falcon. And, I don't know. And, like, Angel from the X-Men is visiting. He's like, oh, hey, guys, can I hang out? They're like, I guess so. I mean, you're not really part of the MCU yet, but... So there's the two Boreads. This is one of my least good drawings, but you try drawing the entire Argonauts in just a few minutes. Okay. So they were winged. I draw them in, like, the color purple was associated with them, so I drew them with, like, purple wings and hair in the few panels they've appeared. Then, switching gears... We're joined by Orpheus. Yeah, Orpheus, the famous musician. Orpheus, who has the power of song. And that might seem like one of those powers that's kind of a foofy-doo power. But Orpheus could literally enchant anyone with this music. He's kind of like a siren with it or something. In fact, he famously protects them from the sirens when they hear it. He uses his own music to drown them out. This is Orpheus before he makes his trip to the underworld. I'll do a story about Orpheus. And then... I guess she's like the Black Widow of the group because she's the only female, at least of the initial grouping, just like Black Widow, is Atalanta. Atalanta, who we will talk about tomorrow. Atalanta is this mighty huntress. Super fast. She's like, okay, scrap this. They're not Wanda and Pietro. She's like, it's like Pietro, Quicksilver, and Hawkeye in one person. Running around super fast, shooting arrows. Pretty amazing. And there's like a ton more. There's like Meleager, who we'll talk about with hers tomorrow. There's all these other characters. Even later on, even Theseus tries getting in. So like Theseus like, can I join? Like, no, Theseus, get out of here, you creep. You're just trying to build... Because I forgot the biggest of all. The Incredible Hulk. Or the Incredible Herc. Hercules. Heracles. I spoke yesterday to a classics league. I did a whole thing where I was talking about Roman gods, so I just said Hercules instead of Heracles, my own worst enemy. Heracles himself, the greatest of all Greek heroes, joins the Argonauts. That makes them super legit. And he's like, of course, he's easily the most powerful. He's definitely the Hulk of this group. Or the Thor, or whoever's the most mighty Avenger. Like, he gives them super duper cred. They're like, wow, we were pretty cool before, and now, like, a number one guy is part of this team. And they all assemble, and they're all going to travel to the ends of the earth to get the Golden Fleece. Now, there's so much to talk about this. I think, I talk a lot about how I'm going to have to do more books after this. I think the first one's going to have to be just Argonauts, because there's so many things to tell in the story. So they travel to the ends of the earth. They encounter, they fight these harpies. They have to go between these clashing rocks that, they slam shut and crush your boat. Speaking of, things that are bad for your boat, they encounter Scylla and Charybdis, the monsters that Odysseus did. They fight them again years later, or years before. And, and there's, this weird incident with the island of Lemnos. We want to talk about that because it's unpleasant. Finally, after all these crazy adventures, and they lose Heracles along the way because this whole thing that happens where, it's in the Hera book. I'm already going too long. And they get to Colchis, and there's these three impossible, literally impossible tasks they have to complete in order to get the Golden Fleece. And Jason, normal guy Jason, he's like, I give up, what can we do? And Hera, his sponsor, who has overseen him through all this stuff, his guardian goddess, taking the role normally reserved for Athena and Hermes. This is her hero. She helps him out. She goes to Aphrodite. She's like, I need your help. And Aphrodite is like, I've been waiting years to hear that. Aphrodite sends Eros, little flying diaper baby punk Eros. And the king of Colchis, who's the person giving on all these tasks, he has a daughter named Medea. And Eros makes Medea fall in love with Jason. Uncool. And so, Jason's first task is he has to plow a field with these bulls that breathe fire, which would just burn him to death. But Medea, who in addition to being a princess, is a really powerful sorceress. She's descended from Circe, in the Odyssey, the original witch, the original sorceress. She makes him a potion so that the flames won't harm him, and he does the first impossible task. Second task, he has to defeat a bunch of skeleton warriors. You can't kill a skeleton, there's nothing to stab. And she gives him this special object that makes the statues fall, these skeletons fall apart. The final task is to defeat the dragon itself that lies circled around the tree that the golden fleece is hidden on. This is a dragon that never sleeps. It's invulnerable. It's like there's no way a guy, even like a light Captain America like Jason, would be able to defeat him. But Medea makes him a potion that makes the dragon go to sleep, and he's able to walk up and sneak up and take it away. So he gets the fleece. And he and Medea, well, Medea's in love. And it's not really her choice, is it? It was through Eros, that little punk. So they travel back, and they're together for a long time, Jason and Medea. They have kids together. He never quite makes her legit, though. He never marries her. He comes back. He becomes the king, the rightful king. Peleus is like, "Oh, you got me," and there's so many. I have to cut this short because we'll be talking forever. But he takes over the kingship. He is now the king. He's got everything he ever wanted. Hera's like, "Good job, you." And then, as he's settled in as the king, he gets married. But not to Medea. This woman who fell in love. Like, I didn't even mention, when they were escaping Colchis, in order to escape her dad, who was really mad, Medea cut up her brother and threw him in the water. So her father was like, "Oh my God, there's pieces of my son everywhere," and had to gather them up. She literally killed a member of her family in order to help them, because she's been made by the gods to love this man. And she was beautiful. She was immensely powerful. I think in some way he did love her, but there was always something. For some reason, he didn't marry her. And this other woman he married, her name it's a couple different names. The one I remember is Creusa. She's the daughter of another kingdom. It's a better political marriage for him. There's no advantage in marrying Medea now because her dad is pretty mad at her because of everything she's done. So you're not going to have a unification. They're going to combine lands and have a bigger kingdom. But this other woman, Creusa, he is. And Medea's like, "How could you do this to me? We have all these children together. We've been together. All the things I gave up for you." And Jason, and this is where we have the big departure between Steve Rogers and Jason. Because Jason's like, I didn't really love you. You didn't even really love me. That was Hera asked Eros to make you in love with me. This was just to help me out. I'm sorry. It stinks. But I have to marry Creusa. It's going to be much better. And Medea is like, "What?" Now, I'm saying all this because Medea is capital I infamous. And you know how, like, when I talk about Hera, I kind of go out of my way to explain a lot of the things she does. I can kind of even say, like, "Oh, the reason she threw baby Hephaestus off the mountain was because Zeus was so terrible." Medea does some stuff that's pretty hard to justify. I don't think even I can come up with justifications for this, but understand why. The gods literally took control of her life, made her fall in love with a man she wasn't going to be in love with anyway. She gave everything to be with this man, had children by this man, and then he threw her to the side. So, first thing she does, she pretends like everything's cool. And she's like, "I understand, you have to have this important marriage. I'll just go pack my bags and, I don't know, go live somewhere." But before, she wants to be at the wedding, and so she wants to appear very gracious, and she makes this beautiful gown, a wedding gown for Creusa. And she's like, "Creusa, I understand." Creusa's like, "I'm sorry, this is bad, awkward." She's like, "I know, it's really weird. I think Jason really loves you. It just wasn't meant to be for me and him. Look, just to show you there's no hard feelings, I made you this beautiful gown." And Creusa's like, "This gown is beautiful." She's like, "Yeah, why don't you try it on?" So Creusa puts on the gown, and Medea's used her magics to make this gown, burn her. Like, she bursts into flame. And she doesn't just die easy. She's like, "Ah!" And her dad, the king of the other kingdom, runs in. He's like, "Oh my gosh, my daughter!" And he's trying to put her out, and he burns the flame. "Ah!" So they die hard. They get burned alive. Then, this is where it gets even, this is where it gets messed up, because that part wasn't messed up. Then Medea kills her kids. The kids she had with Jason. They're not really to blame here. But I think her reasoning is like, this was not a choice I made. These kids are not children I would have had. My life with you is not a life I would have had. I had a life in Colchis, and this was all taken from me. And you were supposed to love me forever, she says it to Jason, and you didn't. And she kills his children. And then she pieces out. She disappears. She goes back to the end of the world, but she doesn't go back to her kingdom. There's different accounts. I think there's even literally one where she rides like Helios's chariot because she actually is descended from Helios, but she just disappears. And Jason is left with like everything ruined, right? He kind of deserves. And to make it even worse, in his lowest moment, Hera comes to him. She's like, what on earth were you thinking? He's like, what do you mean? She's like, we took everything from her. You were supposed to pledge your eternal love to Medea. I don't care how advantageous this wedding is. You betrayed your love to her. And he's like, I never loved her. And she's like, shut up. And Hera turns her back on Jason. And Jason lives out the rest of his life, this lonely, haunted man. Kind of becomes a recluse. He's still the king, but like he just kind of like, he doesn't really start leading. He just kind of like hangs out. He gets older and more decrepit. Like all the like immortal blood in his body, everything that made him like an exciting, vibrant person has gone. He hangs out all day. The Argos, the Argo has been, they took it out of the harbor, they put it on a hill, and it just sits there as this rotting hulk, just as a reminder of his past accomplishments, right? And he hangs out there all day, and he's like, hey, I ever tell you about me and the time the greatest heroes of Greece did this? And people are like, shut up, old man, you're creepy. And he sits there all day, and one day, a piece of the Argo falls off, hits him on the head, and kills him. That's the end of Jason. And, you know, if you've seen the Argo, like I have it in my book, he had like this giant statue of Hera, like as his masthead there. He actually has it tied to the masthead. And so I think in like the movie, it was maybe up in front. It was like the stern or something. But I like to think that the piece that fell off was the statue of Hera, just to completely show his debasement, his complete... He had such great potential, Jason. And then he betrays it all. He throws it all away. There's a good lesson in there, and it's a great story. Like I really, I got this mostly from, it's written by Apollos of Rhodes, I think. It's the Argonautica. There's many different versions of the Argonaut. You can kind of piece them together from different stuff. It's a pretty amazing story. It's a Greek epic later. It's not one of the big ones. It's not, it's not the Iliad. It's not the Odyssey. It comes later. It's very influenced by it, much like the Aeneid, which we spoke about on Monday? I spoke about it yesterday to another group of people. But yeah, insane story, right? So that's the story of Jason and a little bit of the Argonauts. Tomorrow, is she in there? We're going to talk in greater depth about Atalanta. Atalanta, one of the great female heroes. Spoilers, I think we've learned from Hero Week, there's very few happy endings in Greek mythology for heroes. We've seen how Heracles ends up. We've now heard how Jason ends up. We heard about Theseus. He deserved it. Atalanta is also a bit of a sad story. So be prepared tomorrow to like soar to the heights with Atalanta and then kind of sink down to like, oh, that stinks. She deserved better. Because Atalanta truly does deserve better. Jason, I feel like you deserved better, but you really did wrong by Medea. But Medea, you also did wrong. Everybody did wrong in this one. Theseus trying to sneak on the boat. You did super wrong too. So that is my big lecture for today. And as you know, if you've seen this before, this is when I throw it open for questions. Questions and answers. I'm going to take one of my patented swigs of coffee while I wait for people to pop up with some questions. Maybe I've missed a few. Let me see through. Oh, somebody wrote Euripides' Medea is really good. Yes. So this is actually a very popular story. The betrayal of Jason, of Medea by Jason, you see it pop up a lot in antiquity. It's her kingdom. Why doesn't she just kill him and take her kingdom back? Oh, maybe a little bit of confusion there. So Medea's kingdom is Colchis. The kingdom that Jason is the king of is Iolcus. They sound very similar. And then even in some versions of the story, I think including the Argonautica, he actually hasn't maybe become the king yet. He's marrying the princess of Corinth. So the kingdom in question is not the kingdom of Medea's. Also, Medea very thoroughly burned any bridges she had with her home kingdom by killing her brother and throwing him in the water to slow down her dad so he wouldn't chase them. Also by helping Jason get the fleece and everything. So it's very similar to the Ariadne story. You have a princess who helps out the demigod or hero that comes to get the quest item, to kill the Minotaur, to steal the golden fleece, whatever it is. You have the princess who gives up everything to help them and is paid with betrayal by the hero. Ariadne, by far the more sympathetic figure because she doesn't murder a bunch of children, but Medea is a really interesting and complicated figure. Let's see what questions we have here. My name, she's here. My name is Yehi, not Ihi. Did I say it correctly? Yehi or Ihi? Do I usually draw the eyes first? Seems like it. I guess I do. And I think one of the reasons I draw eyes first, well, it depends on what I'm drawing. If I'm drawing an action scene, like this is just people standing there, I don't normally draw the eyes first. In fact, the face is often the last thing I do because I feel like the pose that the figure in really determines the mood. I draw the eyes first because when we see a person for the first time, we kind of lock eyes with them. I have this whole thing, I think the way we communicate, we look at people's face, specifically the eyes, and we look at their hands. And those are the two most important things, I think, to draw when you're trying to convey something more subtle, the face and the hands. So I tend to start with the face because that kind of sets the mood for the whole drawing. I was wondering who you were, and I was like, oh my God, he was the funny guy at the assembly. Okay. So you have no control of yourself. You're just watching this random video like, who is this guy? Why is he here? Oh, I know him. Okay. I'm glad it was funny in the assembly. Let's see. Who would win in a fight? Theseus or Jordan? Are we talking Michael Jordan here? Who's Jordan? Do you mean Jason? Or is there a Jordan I'm not thinking of? So if you're asking who would win in a physical fight between Jason and Theseus, as much as I'm much bigger fan of Jason and Theseus, I think Theseus would curb stomp the heck out of Jason. And it all comes down to the amount of divinity they have coursing through their bones. His great-grandfather is a god. So he could beat me up easy. He could beat up just about anybody. But then you have Theseus, whose dad is just straight up Poseidon. And Theseus is pretty much commonly held to be the second most mighty hero after only Heracles. And if you're in Athens, he's of course equally as strong as Heracles because they're all about making Theseus equal to Heracles. So yeah, I think Theseus would destroy him, unfortunately. Have I ever drawn Medea? I actually haven't. And I was thinking today, I was trying to imagine what I would make her look like. There's a very famous painting. I'm not going to remember who it is. It's called Medea. And it's from maybe the 1800s. So it's later where it's the moment where she's making this poison to kill her kids. And she has this look of conflict on her face and she's actually drawn as the model for it was a Roma woman. And that speaks to me. So I think I would give her a Romany appearance. So dark hair, a lot of different layered silks and things, something to give her this exotic air. I'd have to really spend some time. Maybe I'll do this a future one. Was it last week? I did the designing a bunch of goddesses that didn't really appear in Olympians. Medea would be a great choice to draw of a character who I've never actually drawn, at least not in an official capacity, and kind of work out how I'd want to make her look. Does anyone have a personal run-in with the gods and get a happy ending? So we were asked a variation of this before, and I couldn't think of one, and then I remembered there was one. What are their names, though? It's in Ovid. There's this old mortal couple. They live in a valley. And they don't really have any money. They have a chicken. That's it. They literally have a chicken. That's part of the story. Maybe a goose. They have one bird. That's it. They're farmers with one bird. It's terrible. They're old, desperately poor, but they have each other and they love each other more than anything. And one day, these two beggars come wandering through the town. An old man and a younger man. And they're like, hey, I'm sorry, we just need a place to stay and rest for a second. We're so hungry. We're so tired. Every other person in this town has said no to us. Like, do you have anything? And they're like, yes, of course, come in. And they take these people in and they set them up. And they have a little jar of, like, they have like one jar of wine left. And they give them drinks. And they're like, well, we don't have much food. And they don't make a big deal, but they don't really say, they're like, we're going to kill that one chicken. And then they're about to, like, they're giving this wine, and the people are telling stories, and they're just noticing this wine never empties. It never empties. It keeps going. It keeps going. It keeps going. Like, what's going on with this wine? And that's when they realize all of a sudden, they're like, wait a second. And this old couple it's not an old couple, the father and son that are wandering through town, it's Zeus and Hermes in disguise. And they're like, well, we have some good news. You people are awesome. This whole valley is going to be flooded, and we're going to save you, and everyone else dies because nobody helped us. I'm kind of leaving out some important steps. They kind of do it more trickily, where they take a walk up and like stuff. But like, yeah, so like and then they also say to him like, we'll give you a wish of anything you want. Anything you want at all. And this couple, whose name is it? It's killing me, I can't remember. Somebody will write in, I'm sure. They're like, all we want, they could have asked for a palace, they could have asked for their youth restored, anything. Powers. I want the power to shoot eye beams. No, they asked to make sure that they both die at the same time. And of course, the gods grant them that. Now, being a Greek myth, it's surprising they don't just like cut their heads off there, but they do grant them the ability to die at the same time, so they're never alone. So that's somebody who had a good run with the gods. It's like, oh, there's kind of like a weird subset of mythology where Hermes and Zeus kind of go wandering around in disguise. It actually even makes an appearance in the Christian Bible. There is, I think it's Peter and Paul going to one town, and the people actually think that they are Mercury and Jupiter in disguise. And they're like, no, of course not. That's awful. We're disciples of, So, somebody write, it's so weird that Perseus and Heracles are brothers, but at the same time, Perseus is the great-grandfather, some to Heracles too. I've never heard them referred to as brothers. They're definitely, Perseus is his grandfather on his mother's side. His father is Zeus, so he's got Zeus on both sides. I haven't actually heard them as brothers. Like, I'm not even sure that they were ever alive at the same time, honestly. But, there is a lot of myths that are kind of not very careful about the chronology. I talk about that sometimes. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some myths where they interact that maybe I just can't think of off the top of my head. If they do refer to each other as brothers, oh, I see what you're saying. You're talking about they are brothers because of Zeus. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, they are brothers. I was thinking like there was a story like, you're my brother. He's like, no, I'm your grandpa. Yeah, they're both. It's disgusting. It's weird. Don't think about it. What was Jason's weapon of choice and where did he get it? I don't think Jason really has any particularly well-known famous weapon. It's not like, Heracles with his ashen bow or his club. I think there's references to him having a sword, but I don't think I don't think like Hera gives him any like super cool like, boomerang or something. I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've read the Argonautica, and I feel like it's thirsting in me now to do it. How do you determine how to pronounce the names? I kind of throw everything out at again. So some of it is things that I actually ask people who are Greek speakers. Some of it is, you'll notice my name variations kind of waver. Sometimes I say Hera, which is like the very American English way of saying it. And sometimes I say Hera, which is a lot closer to the way the Greek person would say it. Although even they would have less of an emphasis on the H. It also like a Era. Like that's hard to say. That's why we have the H in there. We're not used to like opening up with like that sound. And I switch back and forth. Sometimes it's Hephaestos, which is more close to the Greek. Sometimes it's Hephaestus because I can make a funny rhyme with it. It's a lot listening to a lot of lectures, asking people. After a while, I just kind of get a sense for how to pronounce things. A couple things that are really helpful that a lot of people don't realize. There's no silent D in Greek. So if you see a name ending in an E, it's a separate syllable. It's not, except for in the case of like Thrace. I don't get that. I've never heard it pronounced Thraci, but it's got an E at the end. So, even there's reasons that it goes against it. Thank you. Somebody wrote in Baucis and Philemon. That was the old couple that had a good run-in with the gods, where they were allowed to grow old and die together at the same time. Thank you so much, Band Geek 1312. Why did you change Atalanta's design? She looks different in Hera than she does in Artemis. That was because, so she makes a brief one panel, I think, appearance in Hera. And it's mostly from behind, if I recall. It's like you literally see her, she's walking up the gangplank to the Argo. So it's kind of a quick drawing, it's a gestural drawing. I hadn't worked as much detail. Now, in the book Artemis, Atalanta, she's not the starring role of the character, but there's a lot more of an appearance. She's the star for a bit. There's a whole part where Artemis is relating her story to kind of illustrate a point to Orion, super creep. Man, there's a lot of creeps in these stories, huh? And I refine her appearance quite a bit. I think I maintain basically the same color scheme, but like I show that like her outfit is made of patchwork leathers. I think I darkened her hair slightly, and just gave her a little bit more personality. It's just because I had spent a lot more time drawing her. So if a character's gonna have a starring role in one of my books, I draw them a lot, like probably at least 100 times till they get in the book. And it would be great if I did that with every single little minor character in the background, but for a lot of times they don't. So Atalanta, before, I had an idea in my head of how she'd look, but I just hadn't fully realized it. So yeah, if I were to go back and do a remastered version, I would kind of make her match her appearance that she has later. Or maybe that's just the way she looked when she was younger, right? Could I correct the pronunciation of the name Yihi? Did I say it right this time? Let me know. Is that the Stinky Cheese Man? Yes. Yes, it is. This is a bobblehead of the Stinky Cheese Man. It's, I'm going to do a little... Lane Smith himself gave this to me. It was something that was going to be made and never got released because the head pops off and the spring could like stab someone in the head. So he had a few copies. He gave me one. Isn't it great? I love it. It's one of my favorite things. Let's see if I pronounce Yihi's name correctly. I don't know. How many comics do I plan to make? Well, that is a great question. I plan to keep making comics, hopefully, for the rest of my life. What I would love to do is, so after after Olympians finishes with Dionysus, which I'm working on right now, I'm going to be doing a 4-book series called Asgardians during Norse mythology. And as I've mentioned, so Yihi, that's not, is it Yehi? Is it Yehi? Is that correct? No, I'm still messing it up. So the idea would be every year, maybe for the rest of my life, it would be pretty cool to do some sort of Greek mythology book. Maybe that's too many. Maybe that's more than the market could handle. But there's so many stories. Like I feel like every time I do one of these talks, I think of some more stories I want to tell. Like I absolutely want to do an entire graphic novel just called The Argonauts or Argonautica or something. Because how cool would that be? Like it's literally the Avengers. And like it's like this greatest Greek heroes. You could touch on all these elements. There's all these like a lot of gods make cameos. It's got a big starring role for Hera, my favorite. So yeah, I would love to do that. But then there's all those other stories. So I plan on making a lot more. Not all of them will be about mythology. I have a book coming out in July that's nothing to do with mythology. It's about politics. So, but yeah, comics are it's a way of life. One of my friends once said, "You don't choose to be a cartoonist. A cartoonist chooses you." Because it's a lot of work, but it's pretty great. You get to draw pictures all day and tell stories. Ah! I got it right finally. So it is Yehi. All right. Yehi, thank you. I'm so sorry. Your stuff's amazing. And watch my Instagram. I'm going to be posting some Yehi stuff. So I think that just about brings us to an end here. I don't think I'm missing any questions. Oh, wait. I'm a librarian. I've read your stories, and so many kids do too, and they always come to me talking about your comics. Oh, it's great. I love that kids love my books. Olympians is written for all ages, ideally, but I find like the only people who could really match me in talking about this minutia are kids. I think adults get scared off by all the polysyllabic names, and they're like pretty worried about like, it's hard for them to keep it straight, but kids, man, they can nail this stuff. And as a guy who grew up loving dinosaurs, you know, I'm very, very used to polysyllabic names and Greek mythology. I ain't scared of those big, long names. I love it. So, yeah, I'm glad kids are getting into this. Oh, we have one last question, then I'm going to sign off. Who is the smartest hero? I would say Odysseus with the caveat that he occasionally does incredibly stupid things. Odysseus is he's very intelligent. He's all about tricking people, but like, you know, like he goes to all the trouble with Polyphemus the Cyclops. All like my name is No Man. So after he pokes out his eye, Polyphemus is yelling, "No man is stabbing me in the eye," and everyone's like, "Cool, glad to hear it." You know, it'd be a bummer if somebody was stabbing you in the eye. Then like he can't resist, and he tells him, "By the way, I'm really Odysseus," which causes all his troubles. So Odysseus has the brain power. He's got a little bit of an ego problem, which is, I think, super duper Greek. You know, Greek hero, not Greek, the people, you know, they're great. I had some of the nicest people I've ever met have been while I traveled to Greece. So I think I have to wrap this up for today because we cut off abruptly at an hour if we don't. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I really do enjoy giving these talks. I hope you do enjoy them too. If you're going to send me any art, please send it to my email, georgeoconnorbooks@gmail.com. If you've missed an episode and you want to catch up on it, check out my YouTube, youtube.com/user/George Olympians. And please join me back here on Friday, where we're going to talk about the coolest of all the heroes this week, Atalanta. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.